Welcome to At the Fence Line with your hosts, Sara Chambers and Gavin Betker.
Hello, hello. Welcome, everybody. Today is a big day. It's a big day for us because we have our first guest on the At the Fence Line podcast. Today, we are joined by the one and only Terry Betker.
Hi, Terry. Nice to meet you.
Hi, Gavin. Hey, I'm not sure whether it's an honor or a privilege or I'm a test monkey for the podcast. Seriously, yeah, I'm looking forward to the conversation, and I really like the idea of Backswath and Gavin and Sara, you guys facilitating or leading these podcast discussions. So totally cool to be first up.
Well, it's an honor for us. Yeah.
Absolutely. Some people will know that are listeners tuning in. Some people won't, that Terry actually keeps trying to retire, and we won't let him. Collectively, Backswath refuses to let Terry retire. So Gavin and I thought we needed you to be the first person because maybe you're going to try and retire sooner than we want to let you. So we gotta get you on now, so that you can't leave us and put your transition plan into effect sooner than we want you to. So that's it.
Yeah, well, that's a bit of an ongoing topic, and it's really when people experience things for the first time, there's no context for what might be happening or what they might be experiencing. So it's sure something that I'm acutely aware of when you come to the end of your career, what that feels like, how you're supposed to understand that. And I'm pretty sure I probably do a better job if I could get to do it twice. So, yeah.
Well, we're happy you're failing. So there you go.
Yeah. It's really hard to give up something, or that's not right, give up. It's really hard. And I can empathize with farmers in this. It's really hard to think about not doing something that you've done for a long time and that you really love doing. So that's a tricky dynamic as part of it, for sure.
For sure. I am going to, before we kind of get into the good stuff, I'm going to take a few minutes to kind of do a brief introduction. Okay, so jump in and correct me if I get anything wrong. But so for just briefly, Terry, you grew up on a farm. You farmed with your brother for quite a while. And then you got to the point where you realized your brother didn't want to take your advice anymore. So you left the farm, you set off on your own to try and find farmers who would. And lucky you, there are farms out there, farmers who do want to take your advice. So that is when you started Backswath. So that was over 30 years ago that you started Backswath. And in the last 30 years, you've spent some time with other notable agriculture businesses, helping to develop their ag services for farms. You are really a public figure in agriculture as well. So you've spoken internationally, within Canada, outside of Canada, all over the place. You've spoken to farmers quite literally all over the world. You often speak at trade shows, conferences. You have been featured on other podcasts before, often talking about management topics. And then outside of all of that, you are a husband, you are a father, you're a grandfather, and you're a pretty great guy to work for. And I get to say that from experience because maybe other people don't know this as well, but I started 5 years ago as your EA. So you used to tell me what to do, and now I tell you what to do all the time. So I think that's like a pretty great working relationship for me. Anyways, that's I really enjoy that.
There's more. Sorry, Gavin, go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to quickly add, Terry's also good at giving advice outside of work. Just
okay.
What were you going to say there,
Did
Terry?
I miss anything, Terry? Did I miss anything there?
No, I was just going to comment that in a couple of the things that you said, there's more truth in there than maybe because I was the older brother, and Sheldon, my brother, there's a lot of times he didn't like listening to what I was suggesting. And Sara, I can't believe it's been 5 years, and you are guilty of telling me what to do, but usually in differing from my experience with my brother, what you tell me is usually correct. So
Yeah, there you
I appreciate that quite a bit.
I'm glad that this is being recorded. So I have you
Yeah.
now on recording saying that I am always right and you are always wrong. What a beautiful thing.
I think he said often. Not always, yeah.
I heard always. So, but okay. Not always, just most of the time. Okay, but we are going to move on. If I didn't miss anything, I got it all. I captured most of it, the highlights. Okay, cool. So we are going to move into a segment that I invented because I'm a genius. No, it's two truths and a lie. But basically, it's a competition between Gavin and I to see who knows Terry the best. Because Gavin, of course, is a Betker. I consider myself an honorary Betker. Terry has so many kids at this point, he wouldn't notice one more. So we're gonna see who knows him best. So we asked Terry to come up with some questions, not tell us before what the questions are going to be. In the set of questions, there'll be two truths, one lie. Terry, I think I'm going first, right? Okay, I'm ready.
Okay, three statements. The first one being that Sara, when I graduated from U of M, Faculty of Agriculture, I didn't have any set career plans. It's not like I got my degree and at that time was going to go back to the farm or was going to get a job in agriculture someplace. I didn't know. So I had an appointment booked with a faculty advisor to become a lawyer. So that's my first statement. Second statement is that I gave a very nice cabbage to my future mother-in-law so that I could actually marry her daughter. That's the second statement. And the third statement is that I hold a Canadian patent for a grain auger safety switch. So which are the truths and which is the lie?
Okay. Okay. I'm a little bit disappointed because I thought you were going to give me hard ones. Like when we talked about it beforehand, I said that you should come up with hard ones because
I tried.
And that's so easy because I know for a fact that when you were finishing school, the faculty advisor you spoke to was in education, not in law. So the first statement is the lie. Is it right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, the cabbage is true and the patent is true. So yeah, you got it correct.
Mm-hmm. There we go. See? So yeah.
I can smile now. I was trying to keep the most ultimate poker face there to not give you any hints.
Did you know? You knew
Oh,
that?
yeah.
Okay.
He might have harder
Okay, let's
ones
see
for
what
me.
happens.
Well, actually, I tried to pick easier ones for you, Gavin. So we'll see. Here's the three I came up with. So I played Cinderella. I played the role of Cinderella in a high school play when I was in Suris, and in the role I rode a tricycle, wearing across the stage, wearing a wedding gown, singing the song "Yesterday." That's the first one. The second one is I've made presentations to several International Farm Management Association congresses, including one in Netherlands. And the third one is I co-designed the Alberta Agriculture Risk Choices program for farmers.
Well, it seems obvious, but that first one is so outlandish. Like, where would you have pulled that from? I know the presentations one is correct, and unless that. So that's I know we can't spend all episode on this. I'm just gonna go with the Cinderella one being the lie.
It is true. I did play the role of Cinderella, and I rode the tricycle across the stage singing "Yesterday." And actually, we rehearsed it a few times, and there was a whole play. And this one, first time, I caught my wedding dress in the chain in the spokes of the pedals, and I fell over. Like it was hilarious.
I don't think I ever heard that story.
Until then, the crowd didn't know that it was they were supposed to laugh, but they couldn't help laughing at that point. And, I made presentations in not in Netherlands. I made in Poland, several companies, kind of New Zealand, Canada, United States, Tasmania. Yeah. Anyway, and I did co-design that program. So yeah.
Well, I was pretty sure you had that third one was true. That second one, I just had. I mean, Sarah, you win. Full credit to you. But I feel like that second one was a little bit tricky because it was half true.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyways, okay, cool. That was fun. I had never heard that Cinderella story. That's hilarious.
I find that really interesting. Okay, so I have to be somewhat honest with you, Gavin. I cheated. I got Terry to send me the things beforehand because I just wanted to beat you, really. But that was I think I actually would have gotten that right because Terry, wasn't I supposed to speak in the Netherlands? That would have been my IFMA speaking.
Yeah, no, it was oh no, it wasn't Netherlands. I think we'd have to think about that. I think it was Poland, I think is where I ended up going.
I would have believed the Cinderella thing just because it's Souris, and I bet the options are quite limited for people to play Cinderella.
Well, and you could hear my hesitation because, like, where do you come up with a story like that, right? But the other two just sounded so believable as from a work perspective. Good ones, good ones, and we learned a little bit about you, Terry.
It was rigged against you from the start, Gavin. So, anyways, sorry
okay
for that, but anyways, we can move on. Okay. So I want to dive. So we're going to do kind of interview style with Terry today. And my goal is really for people to get the opportunity to hear you talk about things that, you know, if they've listened to you on other podcasts or read some of the articles that you've published, things like that, maybe these are things that you haven't always had the opportunity to say. That's my goal today. So we're going to ask you, like I say, it'll be more interview style. Gavin and I have some questions prepared. We want to hear, you know, your thoughts, your stories, your opinions on things. And like I say, it's pretty broad. Normally when you are featured on podcasts or at speaking engagements, you're focused quite intently on one subject. And this is kind of giving you the opportunity to talk about all of it. So I want to kick it off with a question that I don't know, maybe is easy or maybe isn't, but on the theme of kind of broad, you get to say what you want, is I would like to know, over your years as a consultant or working with farmers just in general in whatever capacity, what is one thing that you wish every farmer knew about management? If there's one piece of advice you could give to every farmer, or, you know, one gap that you've seen in understanding that you wish you could help them out with, what would that be?
No, Sarah, or at the very least, be aware of or have an appreciation for the fact that businesses outgrow management, and that dynamic absolutely can apply and does apply to farms. Sometimes to their disadvantage or to their peril, I guess, in worst case scenarios. And it is happening. I'm actually watching it happen to a couple of farms at present. At least in my opinion, I think they are outgrowing their management. Now, none of us know anything about what's going to define the future. So, in fact, you know, they may come through it okay. But yeah, I wish more farms would either know or have a much greater appreciation for the fact that growth is growth. Growth is good. No growth means status quo, and that tends to lead to stagnation or complacency. So it's an interesting balance to really understand, but to just charge forward with adding more acres or more cattle without an appreciation of the fact that you need to bring the management of the farm along with it and keep the balance between the management and the growth. That correlates, that amplifies the risk that everybody deals with. That's common everywhere. So yeah.
How would you go about like if a farm said to you that they agree, and that's maybe something that senior generation, it's a struggle that they saw, previous generation have. So like if a farm wanted to check themselves, if they wanted to have some kind of like check and balance in place, what would you say to them?
Well, this is something that I've come to better understand over the last, not a long period of time, but over the last number of years, is two parts of that, Sarah. So one thing would be to work through a process of coming to better understanding and to gain a better understanding of how they presently are managing the business. And then with that, I think most farms tend to, I would go most farms, maybe the significantly most farms tend to think about management from too short a horizon, to management in not the near term. Like to me, the near term management correlates with a season like spring or fall, but the short term management. And I think it really helps to gain context to understand what the relationship is between their size and how they're managing and their growth. And that's then to come to an understanding within the team, the farm management team, whoever that comprises, as to what is it that they're managing towards. So let's extend that horizon out and say, well, I mean, we're going to run our business every year. We're going to make the best management decisions that we can, but with intent. What would they like their management functions to look like, or what do they need to be, say 5 years? Now pick a point in time in the future, 3 years, 7 years, whatever. Just pick that time and try to come to an understanding of how will we define management then, and then make sure they put the processes in place to help them to move towards that outcome.
That's really cool. Thank you. So the next question I have is, what is a belief that you have or have changed your mind about, I should rather say, over the years when it comes to farm business management?
Well, over the years, I could be guilty of changing my mind about farm business management on a monthly basis. But over the years, I farmed for a number of years, and then in my early days of consulting, I did a lot of the emphasis I had or worked with farmers was in the area of finance and financial performance. So have a much better understanding of what and how we could use some of the tried and true financial management principles and apply in that businesses use and apply them back to the farm. Oh, I used to do a lot of per unit analysis, like per acre analysis and per animal analysis, and that's still happening at this time. It's pretty easy to divide your yield or your certain ratios by the acre to know, how are things going. But I gained an appreciation a number of years ago in why businesses separate capital from operations when they're making some of their or analyzing some of their financial performance. So to look at financial efficiency ratios and compare which are a function of income and expenses, revenue and expenses, and then to look at the correlation of those ratios to the capital and financing ratios that are in the balance sheet. So I've came to understand that there's a preferred way to look at a farm's financial performance, and firstly to separate capital and operations, and then once you've calculated some of those business type ratios to determine or to paint a picture of the financial strengths and weaknesses of the farm, then certainly drill it down deeper into per unit analysis to gain an even more granular understanding of what's going on in a business financially. And why I think that's even perhaps more important now than maybe when I first came to understand the need to separate capital and operations is because, as every farmer knows, the capital costs are increasing, and to buy some of these assets, be it land or equipment, takes loans, takes leverage. So it's increasingly important to make sure that we look at, or a farmer makes sure that they look at their financial performance from a operations orientation and a capital orientation firstly, and then drill it down to per acre or per animal.
Okay. That's great.
We got a little lesson on financial performance analysis out of that answer.
Bonus.
Okay, I'm up next. And so this is changing the topic a little bit here. So you're an advisor. You've been an advisor for a long time. Who have you used as an advisor for yourself? And with or without naming names, like you can name names if you want, name drop. You don't have to. But how do you find the support and the help that you need when you're dealing with a challenge or an opportunity?
So other than Sara?
I'm like, you're gonna say your wife, right? Like, you better.
Yeah, no, I will answer with Claire, my spouse, absolutely. But we have had different careers, and Claire has had an extremely successful career in public health for a long time. So we really don't do much crossover on opportunities, but when I have a challenge, that's who I go to. And the other person, Gavin, as I think about this a little bit, and I will name names because he's a friend, a colleague. I worked with him for years, is Ian Craven. And Ian Craven taught me a long time ago that when you're dealing with a challenge or an opportunity, and you're trying to understand or gain an understanding of what it means, to the person, to me, or to the business, then is think about it in its expanded state. So in other words, if this makes any sense, if you're talking about some business challenge, and let's say, the order of magnitude, pick a number, there's a $25,000 difference depending if you did this or if you did that, and you're having a hard time. Well, I don't know, do I do this or do I do that? How do I come to understand what the best path forward is? Ian said, just try to understand it in its expanded form. So not what would you do, not with the $25,000 decision. What if you try to extrapolate that decision and it was a $25 million decision? What would you do? And oftentimes, and it works. I have used this. Oftentimes, the clarity comes with the scale. So I credit that back to Ian. So yeah, challenges, Claire and Ian, and then even on the crossover with opportunities, I still apply that. Opportunities for me, my team, the Backswath people. That's the first go-to people I have when there's an opportunity's come along and I want to try to understand, well, is this something that we should be interested in or not? It's you guys and the rest of the Backswath team. Couldn't do it without you guys.
It's really nice.
Yeah, thank you. So this question is similar to the one that Sara asked at the start about what's something you wish every farmer knew about farm management. So maybe think about another piece of advice that you could offer. So it's not about advice though. So I'll just read the question, but you'll see how it's related. What's something that you've seen or observed in the industry that's been there for a long time that should be improved or addressed, but hasn't been yet? Or something that maybe you think, why hasn't it got better yet? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that one was the first. If I could snap my fingers and effect some change in this particular area, I'd do it in an instant. I think there needs to be some, because the business has changed, the business of farming has changed. I think there needs to be some disruption in the the traditional farm lender, farm borrower relationship and all the processes that encompasses. I've not been shy about saying this to lenders and to farmers. I think there needs to be a shift. I think we're way past the time where farmers, go and, well, basically, in a say, ask permission from their lender if they can do this or if they can do that, or borrow money for this or borrow money for that. I think that relationship, I think it needs to advance. I think going forward, we have to try within that to figure out a way to not do away with, but to come up with some complementary way to avoid complete security-based lending. Now, I know lenders would say that they base on the capacity to pay. Sure, they do, but ultimately they set their parameters for risk around the security or the value of the security. And with capital getting to where it is, and I think we need some different models there. And I'd like there to be some change in that area. And if I could squeeze two in, Gavin, and this one might not be popular with a lot of farmers who may listen to this. And I don't think farmers' ability to file tax using cash-based accounting has really really been to their advantage over time. Sure, you could manage some tax on a year-end basis by prepaying inputs and stuff, but you could do the same things through accrual-based accounting. And I think farmers would have a better, I think generally, not all, but generally farmers would have a better understanding today of what their financial strengths and weaknesses were if they didn't have the ability to file tax returns on a cash basis. That may not be popular with a lot of farms. Anyway, those are a couple come to mind, Gav.
Okay, thank you.
So I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about some of your experiences so that you can reflect on clients that you've worked with, recommendations you've given to farms, conversations that you've had with farms. Part of one of the goals of the podcast is for people maybe who have never worked with management consultants before to kind of get a taste for what they could expect if they, were to start on an engagement with a consultant. So I think that, hearing your sort of really specific experiences would be helpful in that regard. So if you reflect back on your over 30 years of consulting and advising farms, what is one recommendation you've given that stands out in your mind as significant, one recommendation that turned out better than you ever could have imagined?
30 years is a long time, I work. I still do. I have for years worked with a farm family. It's a father, mother, and two sons and two daughters-in-law, and working with that family and trying to do some longer-term planning and focusing on their financial performance and how aligned that performance is or was at the time with what they had hoped to do with the farm. And at that time, there was some early discussions about transition happening within that family. Anyway, I didn't think that the way they had their debt structured within the farm was to their best advantage. It wasn't structured. It wasn't wrong. I mean, no, it wasn't incorrectly structured. I just thought there was a better way that they could align the capital with their financing. It's back to my comment about separating capital and operations. So it actually took me, I don't know, like a couple of years to get them to agree to work through a process to try to change up how they structured the financing in their business. And there's a process that we use at Backswath to help farms do that. And it's quite involved, and the purpose of it is just to create the best financial structure for a farm, and create a really workable relationship with the lender as well. Anyway, the outcome of that is they did go through it, and they the farmer has told me more than once that this is a number of years ago now, so compounded over time, the impact of when they did that and effected different financing structure for their business, that it has benefited them several $100,000. And he went through the. I said, no, I know, yeah, I know. They said no. He had it calculated. This was this, and that was that, and this is this. And he had it all mapped out, and yeah, it did work to their advantage. So that would probably be the best recommendation. Where I simply said, you guys, I think you could do better if you had a different capital structure in your business, and that's what it turned into. So pretty happy about that.
It's a good one.
Nice.
And then he wrote you a check for that amount, right? That's
Yeah.
how that went. Not quite.
Yeah, no, that's where he and I laughed. That's where I said, darn, I should have got a percentage of that one.
Yeah. If only we
which we don't do. We don't
do.
No, we don't do. It's not right to tie an outcome or something like that to a percentage, because then where's the motivation? Our motivation is always to the farmer's benefit.
That's a really good one. Thanks. And so, opposite to that, when's the time that you've, so that time you were right. Great job.
Yeah.
Now tell me what a time you were wrong.
Yeah.
So a time you were just like flat out wrong. And what did you take away from it?
Yeah, well, it's a good thing. Maybe we only have time for me to tell you one. This one though, this was easy. I don't even need to spend a minute even trying to think about this. One's easy. This is a long time ago, and I've actually used this. I get asked once in a while. I haven't for a couple of years now or so, but I used to get asked once in a while to speak about lessons learned from consulting and etc. But this is clearly a lesson learned. I told a farmer once that if he didn't make some changes, and I'll get into the changes. If he didn't make some changes, his farm it wasn't sustainable. It wasn't gonna carry on. He's gonna lose the farm. I'm pretty sure a number of years ago, I'm pretty sure I gave him a timeline. I think he'd be out of business in let's say 3 years. I can't remember the exact details, but he proved me wrong. He farmed. I think he's retired now, but he farmed it and actually became fairly successful, quite successful, I guess. He did. I didn't have an ongoing consulting relationship with him after I made that bold statement, but I'd travel around and you just know and hear and observe what some farms are going on. And what I learned from that is, it's not, when I consult with farms, when Backswath consults with farms, it's not our business, it's their business. It's not our decision, it's their decision. We're just supposed to create context to help them understand what the best decision is that they could make, and then support them in what changes are that might be needed. So yeah, I learned a long time ago, Sarah, that who am I to tell somebody what they should or shouldn't do? Yeah,
That's really interesting. So he obviously turned it around in a way that you hadn't expected.
Yeah. Well, and that goes to the in one way that goes, I think, to the nature of farms. They're resilient. There's something to be said, and this doesn't come out of consulting school. There's something to be said for farmers, and next year will be better, and that eternal optimism. And I'm going to make this work. something.
Yeah, it's interesting to me to hear you say that as well, because I think that one of the biggest shifts, when I joined the team at Backswath, that you really were always encouraging me to make, was to look at things as opportunities and not just failures. And so it's interesting, not to say that you were suggesting that he was failing, but more just that how your mindset now, in my experience with you, that you're very much more opportunity based than maybe you were when you worked with that farm. So
Yeah,
maybe that's where it came from.
No, I told him what I thought.
You were just trying to.
People will ask me what I think, and I will tell them, and that not to tell you what to do, but I'm not as shy about giving them a recommendation or here's what I see other farms doing to try to help them gain some context. So I think that's part of our role. So I'm not shy in doing that.
You were just providing him with.
Yeah.
I'm going to prove Terry wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you go for it, Gavin.
Yeah, that's interesting because we can think about the outcomes as being direct or of direct or indirect benefit, and then we could think of them as being shorter term or longer term. So why I say that is the first one that comes to mind is goal setting. So that it's a simple little exercise where farm families will basically write down their goals. It's virtually impossible to remember what your goals were 5 years ago. For me, it's difficult to remember what they were maybe 6 months ago. But how do you go back then and measure against or celebrate success for things that have happened or understand why some things haven't happened? So I like the goal setting, but I also then, Gavin, like the goal setting application where it's done every, I don't know, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. So actually people uh, specifically go back and look at what was said before or what was written before and then understand what that is and how it compares to what their present day goals might be. So that's one. I've watched in that has short term and longer term direct and indirect benefit. When I mean direct, there could be direct benefit to the farm business, but in a goal setting, there could be indirect benefit to just basically farm family harmony, and that's what I meant by the direct and indirect. Another one that I've watched this happen to farms, and I champion this, is having a formal office outside the kitchen table. It's huge. It's huge. It takes some effort. The direct benefit to that is I think kind of obvious because the farm then has there's just a different approach to how they manage the business. Uh, but it helps to separate the person, the family, and the person from the business. That's one indirect benefit. And the other indirect benefit is that it has to do with transition. And I think this is really interesting because if you're a youngish farm family, a man and a woman, husband and wife, mother and father, and you're farming together, and you got 2 or 3 kids, and they're 4 or 5 years old, and there's an office that they go to, though, like outside of the kitchen table. Those children observe and come and grow up learning that mom and dad go to work, and they subconsciously make that differentiation between the kitchen and or even a house or an office in a room in a house and the outbuilding. So that's another one. There's a couple, Gav.
I really like what you just said when you were talking about goal setting. You just mentioned it, but about celebrating successes. Like, I always think of goal setting in terms of strategy and sort of in terms of leading some of your direction. I don't often think about it in terms of reflecting. And I think especially in agriculture and sort of the nature of farmers is that, and just the nature of our industry overall, because of economies and weather and what, it can feel like we're not succeeding. It can feel, the crop is never good enough, the rain's never right. And so I think that with goal setting, like you said, to reflect back on successes, it can help us feel a little bit more like we are making progress, and we have had successes in the year, and we're achieving the things that we're setting out to do, even if the crop wasn't great last year, or whatever it might be. So I think that's really cool. I've never thought of it in that way before.
Yeah. Why wouldn't why wouldn't a farm family do their goals and then 3 years later do their goals again? And then why wouldn't they make an appointment with their lender and go and talk to them? We just went through this new goal setting and we compared it to others, and here's some of the success that we've been able to accomplish, and here's some of the things we did, and here's some of the things that we weren't able to do or haven't materialized yet. And the media's got nothing to do with asking to borrow more money. It's just to impress upon their lender that the farm families actually really proactive when it comes to understanding how they're managing their business. It's huge benefit to that. I think, anyway. Well, maybe I shouldn't say huge. Maybe guilty of overstating a bit, but a worthwhile benefit to doing that for sure, in my opinion.
Well, I think it's reflective of, where we anticipate the relationships between farms and lenders heading, as farm sizes are getting bigger, and, there's that relationship needs to be potentially stronger than it has been in the past. Farms that maybe, haven't needed to take advantage of leverage so much, that might change for them in the coming years. So that's one way to be strategic about that relationship. I think it's, like you say, it's not always asking about, more money, but just really solidifying how you approach management and why you are a good candidate for, lending in the future if need be. I think it's really great advice.
Yeah, that was easy, Gavin. I speak to that as being about farmers applying a default management function to their business. And what I mean by that is let's just use bookkeeping. That's a simple one. Well, we know we need to do bookkeeping, and who's not busy? Well, I don't want to be. I'm driving the tractor in the barn. Well, that might be the spouse, for example. She can do it. So my dog just heard your dog bark. So
I didn't mute myself quick enough. Hold on.
yeah, well, we'll get through this anyway, Gavin. I think that using that default, I think there needs to be intent with who's responsible for what areas of management in the business, and not just who's not busy. Or it's like do you remember the commercial a long time ago, and some brand of cereal, and let Mikey try it? And I'm dating myself, and they had this. There was two or three kids, and they had some new cereal, and they didn't know whether they were going to eat it and that. And there was the younger one who said, "Well, let Mikey try it." He was the younger one, because let him go first.
Well, just that default. That's a really
it made me think, Gavin, you're exactly right. I had a meeting with a farm family here just it'll be a month ago now, and that absolutely happened. That's a mixed farm. They have grain and livestock, and when there was two brothers farming, a dad and an uncle, and when the uncle retired, the first son came back to farm, and they needed somebody to look after the livestock, or the grain operation. And I was at the meeting. It came to be that he said, "Well, I didn't want to be the grain operations guy. I prefer to work with cattle." But he did it by default because there was nobody else around to do it. That's a great example, Gavin.
No, that's fine. So I've got two more questions for you, Terry, to kind of round it out. I want to look into the future, get your opinion on what the future would look like. So 10 to 15 years from now, what do you think farm management will look like? What do you think will be important for farmers to know?
Well, we're certainly, in my opinion anyway, we're certainly going to continue to see a change or ongoing increasing amount of complexity in farm businesses. Complexity in terms of the size, who's all involved, So that dynamic is going to be even more important in that 10 to 15 years. At I think with back to our conversation about financing, with the capital costs getting to where they are, I think we're going to see some more creative models in which farms are capitalized and financed. I believe that's going to change. So different business models. We're starting to see a little bit of it now. We're going to, I think, see more farms expand in, and I'll call it pods. So not buying the half section 4 miles away, but buying 5,000 acres, 30 miles away. Because I think that's just an end to how the farm going to secure the capital to do that. Two other things come to mind, and there's going to be an emphasis, and again we're seeing this already. There's going to be an emphasis on better understanding, or farmers having more tools at their disposal to manage risk. And I mean risk beyond operational risk. I mean operational finance. Yeah, that just goes hand in hand with a farm. But I think we're going to have to find somewhere in agriculture to help to proactively manage some of that risk. Yeah, those are two or three things that I see happening in the next 10, 15 years. 10 years goes pretty fast. Trust me.
You're supposed to say HR. I feel like if you were going to ask me that question, I would say that I think there's going to be more and more emphasis placed on a farm's ability to lead their team to, I mean, it goes hand in hand with all of those things that you just said, but that's my little plug. For people that don't know, I'm like the black sheep of the Backswath family because I focus on HR. So whenever I think about these things, that's how I tie it back. But when I think about the farms that I work with in HR consulting, the progressive ones, in my opinion, that's, what they're starting to focus on more and more.
I'm glad you brought that up, and I'm a bit duh. Come on, Terry, you should have thought about that. But I think part and part with that HR has to do with specifically with how people are compensated within that whole HR realm. Now, and I think as part of that, then a better understanding of how we compensate people for their ownership, for the ownership contribution they provide, and for the management or the labor. And yeah, that's really lacking in a lot of farms. And if the farms continue to get bigger, logically we're going to have more non-active owners. So how do we compensate them for their ownership, like through a dividend, or what's the plan associated with that? So I'm glad you brought that up, Sara, because bang on HR. Yeah, if I think back to conversations I had with farms 10 or 15 years ago, which is one way to understand 10 or 15 years hence. Yeah, I'm glad you brought up HR. Yeah. And you know what? I had a discussion with sorry, I'm mindful of the time here. I had a discussion with a farm family, again, not that long ago. We were talking about HR and management and roles. And so it was the family was there. They just had, a couple of seasonal workers. And they said, well, we don't have any human resources. And I think that's, golly, I should have had this one up there, Gavin, on what I wish farms would pay attention to, is the fact that, hey, of all their human resources, the farm family's own human resource is the most important human resource that they have. And farms only have one finite resource, and that's their time. And so how do they best utilize their own human resource? God, we could talk about this for a while.
No. I wanted to do a podcast just on HR, but Gavin wouldn't let me. So there we go.
That's not true.
No, okay. Okay, so the last question for you before we kind of wind things down here. If you could share only one story that defines your career, what would it be?
Do I get two?
No, just one.
I might take two.
Okay.
Well, again, there's a lot of stories, this is a number of years ago, and we try at Backswath to help farm families, and I think we do because there's no tax return to file, there's no financial statements to put together. Farmers work with us because they find it valuable. I mean, we obviously they perceive that we're providing value, helping them, and that's what drives me, what drives Backswath. I think was our goal is to help farm families. And I remember talking to a family, and the husband and a wife, and had to do with just general business type stuff, I don't know, just management stuff, finance, planning. At that particular farm, there was some early stage discussion about, like, really early transition or succession planning. And the farmer turned to his wife, and he had put, it's a little bit funny, but at the same time, to me, it signifies the extent of the trust that farmers put in the relationship that we have with them, that I've had with some of them. And he had put or taped my business card to the headboard of their bed in their bedroom. And he said to me and to his wife, he said, "I've told my wife," he said, "if something ever happens to me, that she's supposed to call you." So that's how much trust he put in that. And yeah, that signified a lot. I try to help farm families, and yeah. I want to, Sarah. I've talked to so many farm families about them and their lives and their farms and their businesses and their successes and their challenges and all that. And in one of those meetings, not that long ago, actually, I had a farmer turn to me. It's the only time that I ever remember this happening. And he reciprocated the discussion. He said, "How are you doing, Terry?" And it wasn't just, "How are you doing?" It was said with intent. He was reciprocating what matters to me, and that's how the families are doing, how the farms are doing. So, yeah, I found that really meaningful.
I was just going to say that, I don't think that this story would be sort of something, like peak of your career defining or anything like that. But if I was to tell a story about you that I think is Terry Betker defining, years ago, there was a farm that was going through a hard time. It was, things were not on the up and up, and they were having some personal challenges related to that. And I remember it was winter, so that's when we have a lot of meetings with clients, and we're working really closely with farms during that time. That's when they want to kind of focus more on some of the things that we like to focus on. And I remember your calendar was just jam packed. You had so much going on that week, and I think you sent me a message saying, "I need you to reach out to everybody and just." I'm out. You drove through the night to, go and meet with this farm, and you committed to being there for as long as you needed to be, until they, felt a little bit better about the outlook and their circumstances, and until you had helped them kind of resolve some things. And I remember feeling like when I knew that about you, that was all I needed to know about you. And that's how I wanted to model how I work with clients as well, is to be that type of a resource that, they trust you, but you know when it matters and you kind of go when you're called. So I just wanted to share that.
Thank you, Sarah.
That's a great addition to that last question, Sarah. And I'm glad you picked those two stories, Terry. I had the list of questions ahead of time, and I thought you might tell that headboard story. I'm familiar with that one, and it is kind of a chuckle just because of where he put your card, right? But but the two stories there just goes to show how much rapport that you build with your clients and things that Sara and I and the team try to emulate. So thanks very much for being our first guest. That was, I'm sure people will have learned something about you, but there was also lots of great advice in there as well. So an opportunity to share some of your wisdom, just some. So yes, thank you again, and thank you to the listeners for tuning in. Please remember that if you had a question or a comment or anything to follow up on what you heard today with Terry, if you have a question for him, I'm sure we could pass it along for you or address it in an upcoming episode. So you can find us on social media, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, or by going to our website, backswath.com. Sara, any last words?
No. Thank you,
No?
Terry. This was excellent. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks for including me, you guys.
Here. Our pleasure. We're going to sign off. We'll see you on the next one.
Okay. See ya.
Bye.
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 Thank you for tuning in to another episode of At the Fence Line with Sara Chambers and Gavin Betker. If you have any questions or comments about today's episode or would like to get in touch with us, please find us on Instagram at Backswath_MGMT or through our website at www.backswath.com. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed in this podcast belong solely to the host and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views, policies, or positions of Backswath or its affiliates. Any reference to specific products, services, organizations, or individuals does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation by Backswath.